everyone, my name is Gabby and today I'm going to be bringing you my April wrap-up. Of course this video is coming later than normal, but I've been incredibly busy so far this month. I've had 2 AP tests that I've needed to take in May. I have final exams coming up in 2 weeks. I have a whole bunch of other quizzes and tests that I need to take to wrap up some final units of the year. So high school has been kicking my butt recently and has been a huge part of my priorities at the moment. And I'm also planning for New York. I'm having to pack, I'm having to figure out what I want to bring and plan other stuff, plan my schedule for BookCon, and also trying to read. It's just been crazy in several different fronts in my life, and I really haven't had time to sit down and film and upload and edit a video and really put in all the effort and time into that. And I want to upload content that people are going to enjoy and that is going to be my best effort and my best work. I don't want to upload content that is quickly filmed and quickly edited and quickly put together and isn't something that my audience deserves to watch. So I apologize that I haven't been on here, but I feel like as a creator, I owe it to my audience to explain why I've been absent. And I promise you that when June comes around, I'm going to be more active. I'm going to have a whole bunch of vlogs and things from New York. I'm going to have Shadowhunter reviews. I'm going to have other bookish content, and it's going to be full force this summer, and I'm really excited about that, to get more free time and to really get to dive into my channel. But as for right now, May has been a really crazy and really busy month, and I'm very excited for it to be over and to get to spend more time booktubing and uploading and recording and doing what I love, especially because I've gained a whole bunch of new subscribers recently. So if you've subscribed to my channel and you're new here, thank you so much for subscribing and wanting to watch my content and stick along for everything that I'm going to be doing on this channel in the future. I really hope that you enjoy this content and that it's a channel that you want to keep subscribing to. And I'm sorry that you're subscribing at a point where I'm really not uploading content as frequently as I normally do, but I'm really excited to get to bring you more content in the following months. With that all being said, I'm going to dive right into discussing the 7 books that I read in April, as well as ending this video with a brief announcement. So my first read of the month was one that I read over my spring break, and I was able to finish this book in 9 days, which I think is by far my greatest literary accomplishment, and that is Alexander Hamilton by Ron Chernow. This is of course the biography that inspired Hamilton, an American musical, and I got this book for my birthday in November. It's been sitting on my shelf waiting to be read, and so I decided that when my spring break came around and I was gonna have a full week to just fully divulge myself in this book and its entire density, that this would be the best time to read it, and it really was. It took me 9 days to read this book, and I finished it at 11:15 p.m., almost about 45 minutes until that Monday when I had to go back to school after spring break. So I just barely made my goal of finishing this book during my spring break, but I did it. Like I said, guys, this book is incredibly dense, and it's dense in all fronts. You can't escape it. It is 731 pages, 43 chapters, and those chapters are very long and are very dense in the topics that they deal with. You explore several years within the course of one chapter, and all of the events that you discuss, there's multiple amounts of them, and lots of description and analysis into everything that's going on. It's just a lot to take in and absorb. So really, my one piece of advice if you're going to pick this book up is that you read it at a time when you're not really busy and you're able to fully absorb everything and fully understand everything and really fully dedicate yourself to this book, because it's not one that you can read when you're really, really busy and just read it giving half of your attention to it. You need to be fully immersed in everything that's going on, because it's very dense and deals with a lot of content and a lot of material, because you're covering the life of this political figure cover to cover. It's a lot to take in, so you really have to be able to focus all of your attention on it and really be dedicated to reading this and absorbing yourself in the content. I really loved getting to read this book, not only because I love Hamilton the musical and I wanted to find out more about Hamilton outside the musical and outside of the creative licenses that Lynn had to take in telling the musical, but I really love the way that Ron Chernow humanized the Founding Fathers. Typically when we're taught them, whether it be in school such as college, high school, or elementary school, we're taught to put them up on a pedestal, and we really only acknowledge their accomplishments, whether it be in writing and documents, or they're fighting in the Revolutionary War, or the creation of the Republic federal system, the democracy that we have today, and that it was just a whole new American experiment. And so the Founding Fathers get acknowledged for all of those accomplishments, and so we start to put them up on a pedestal and we start to acknowledge them only for their accomplishments, and we don't bother to look at their flaws. So I think that it's fine that we acknowledge those accomplishments, but we don't have the look at the other horrible things that they were doing, the way that they treated each other in the press, specifically focusing on Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, Aaron Burr, and John Adams, the 5 of them, the way that they treat each each other in the press, then a whole bunch of other, you know, minor people who play into that as well, is just horrible. And it's something that's been going on since the beginning of times with political parties, the way that people bash each other in the media. And it's so sad to think that people who wrote these wonderful documents and people who were such a wonderful part of our country and our country's history and its founding could do such horrible, malicious things. And also looking at Alexander Hamilton and his affair with Maria Reynolds, and looking at Thomas Jefferson and what he may or may not have done with Sally Hemings, although historians can most likely assume that something happened there, is just so sickening and so wrong. And also the whole slavery thing. And we never acknowledge that at all. And I love how Ron Chernow takes the time in this book to say, well, yes, the founding fathers did all of these wonderful things, but they had several strikes against them, and that it weren't these perfect people that we typically make them out to be. And it was just really interesting to get to read about Alexander Hamilton's life, to get more of that opening into his history and find out a lot of things that I didn't know before, that I didn't know because of the creative liberties that Lynn had to take, or things that have just sort of been hidden because this founding father has just sort of been, like I said, covered up from history. Nobody really knew about him until relatively recently, and so now you have a whole bunch of people getting into history from the musical and then going and picking up this book, which is what I did, and I'm really glad that I got the opportunity to read it because Ron Chernow did an amazing job of telling Alexander Hamilton's story. It was so fascinating and so interesting. I typically don't read nonfiction because it's just not my thing, so to go and pick up something like this that was as massive as it was and to be able to enjoy it was just so wonderful, and I'm really glad that I was able to read this during my spring break and that I was really able to fully immerse myself in the world of Alexander Hamilton and just really get to learn more about him outside of the musical. So my next read of the month was Of Fire and Stars by Audrey Coulter. This was the Owl Crate December book of the month, and if you want to see that unboxing, I will have it linked down below. This story follows two princesses, Mare and Denna. Denna is engaged to Mare's brother through the form of a political alliance between Mare and Denna's two kingdoms. And so Denna travels to Mare's kingdom, and when she is there to then end up getting married to Mare's brother, she has to take horseback riding lessons because she's never ridden a horse before, and that type of travel just isn't common in her kingdom. So she takes horseback riding lessons from Mare, who, although she is the princess of this kingdom, is kind of looked at as more of a stable hand because she just doesn't want to have anything to do with being a princess or getting married. She just doesn't really have any interest in living that life. So she goes and works in the stable. She loves horseback riding, and it's always something that's been a huge part of her life. So she starts to help Denna learn to ride a horse. They start to grow relatively close, having these lessons every day, and then they start to grow even closer when a political assassination takes place. Mare and Denna sort of team up to figure out who was responsible for this assassination, and with that, this whole talk of magic wielders start to come into the story, and Denna herself has the power of magic, the power to control fire, and so she has to repress and hide all of this while also having to hide her looming relationship with Mare. So it's a lot of crazy stuff that's going on, and this all happens within the course of a standalone fantasy novel. It's just insane. I've never read a standalone fantasy novel before because they're really, really, really rare. You just don't see them a lot because usually fantasy stories take at least one book to develop and then another book to really get into the plot and wrap everything up at least. Usually you have 3 books or more. So to see a standalone fantasy novel like this that was developed relatively well in terms of the plot and the characters, that wrapped up really nicely, was extremely impressive, especially coming from a debut author, and I was really taken aback by it. I really wasn't sure if I was gonna like it at first, but I read it and actually really ended up enjoying it. 2 of my favorite things about this book is, number 1, Mare and Denna, their sexualities are not ever explicitly stated in this novel. There's never any statement that Mare is gay or Denna is bisexual. Really, the whole thing is that they care about each other, and that's what matters, and I think that's such an interesting point that the author makes. I don't know if that was intentional, but that's definitely what it seemed to convey to me, is that both Mare and Denna really care about each other, and they want to have this relationship, and it shouldn't matter how it is that they identify, because if you really care about somebody and you really want to have that relationship and you really want to be there for them and be protective of them and be with them for the rest of your life, that's what should matter, not what sexuality you are or what gender you are. And I really loved how Audrey conveyed that in the story. I also really love how she didn't really villainize any characters, because there are other male characters in this book and it doesn't seem like they're villainized or made to look worse in the reader's eyes so that you can force Mare and Denna together. I know there's authors that do that take their other supporting characters and sort of villainize them in a way so that you're forced to like the main ship, and I just really don't like reading that. I like being able to read from all of the characters and be able to enjoy all of them but still be able to find the main ship on my own, and I think that Audrey did a really great job of that. I really enjoyed reading the story. It was very fast-paced, and definitely the more that I read, the more that I got wrapped in the world. I love the diversity of this book, and I was really compelled in the assassination and everything that was going going on. There were so many twists and turns, and I was constantly intrigued. I definitely recommend this book if you're looking for a diverse read, especially if you're looking for a standalone fantasy novel. You don't want to commit yourself to a series, but you want a taste of fantasy. This would be a perfect book for you. I'm really glad that I got the opportunity to read it, so thank you so much, Owlcrate, for including it in your December box. My next read of the month was My Lady Jane by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jodie Meadows. This is the first book in a 3-book series that takes the life of a famous Jane in history and rights some wrongs. This story follows Lady Jane Grey, and she was the Queen of England for about 8 or 9 days before she was beheaded, so this story takes that narrative and rights her wrongs. I loved the concept of this series so much, and really when I took the time to sit down and read it, I just fell in love with it more and more and more. I got an arc of this book back in June from Sasha at A Book Utopia. She had a whole bunch of them. I was at an event of hers, and she said, here, take them, I don't want them. And so I grabbed My Lady Jane, and it had just recently come out at the time that I had gotten the arc, and so I was like, I really don't know that much about this book. I don't know whether I'm gonna like it or not, so I let it sit on my shelf for a year, and then I was really looking for a little bit of a lighter contemporary read, because after finishing a nonfiction novel and then a fantasy novel, I kind of wanted something more lighthearted, and this book was like the perfect thing that I could have picked up. There is a little bit of fantasy in here, as we have some animal forms the characters evolve into at times, so there's a little bit of magic and fantasy in there, but we also get to see these people from history written as fictional characters, and you really get to fall in love with them, and I feel like that was executed really, really well, and you really didn't think that you were reading about historical figures. You felt like you were reading these actual characters. Like, they just felt really relatable, and I felt like I really connected to them and really warmed to them the more that I started to read the book, and I was really drawn into the plot and everything that was happening, and the way that the Lady Janies, which is the way that the 3 authors refer to themselves, tell the story of Lady Jane Grey and the other people who are part of her life. And I also love the fact that there's narrator commentary throughout this book, so there's points where the narrators pop in and make comments, and I feel like that was really comical and really well executed and didn't take away from the plot of the story. We have 2 different points of views that go on. I loved reading all of them, and I feel like that was well executed. There were so many things that I loved about this book, and I'm really excited to get to read more in this series and see the other ways that the Lady Janies will take famous Janes and right their wrongs. Like I said, I think it's such an interesting premise, and I'm so glad I got the opportunity to pick this book up this month because I had the absolutely best time reading it. My next read of the month was 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher. I have never read this book before, and after the Netflix show came out and everyone was talking about it, I'm like, I need to get the book and then watch the show, so that's what I did. I picked up the book and I watched the show. I have finished both now, and I'm gonna keep this relatively brief because I want to have a video where I discuss 13 Reasons Why and have it in more of like a reader ramble style where I just kind of discuss whatever it is that comes to mind. They don't really have a full-length formal review, and talk a little bit about season 2 because 13 Reasons Why is getting a season 2, so I'm really interested to see what they do with the second season, and I'm excited to discuss this book more with you guys. But to sort of give you a little bit of an idea of what my thoughts were, I really enjoyed this book. I think it's really important. I think that you have a good mindset and that you're able to go into the story and you're able to look at it objectively, and you're not able to be triggered by some of the very harmful aspects of this book and some of the very difficult topics that it deals with. It can be a very eye-opening and very enlightening read, and I really hope that teenagers watching the show or reading the book now get something out of it and they learn something from it about how your words impact other people around you. It's just such an important read, and I'm so glad that I got the opportunity to pick it up this month and watch the Netflix show, and I'm really excited to see what the creators do with the second season. So my next read of the month was Geekerella by Ashley Poston. Guys, I love this book so much. It was so wonderful. I loved all of the characters. I loved the plot. This is a Cinderella retelling with a geeky, nerdy twist, and it is by far the best Cinderella retelling that I've ever read in my entire life. I am so obsessed with it. I just did not think that I would love this book as much as I did. I've known about this book pretty much since October when ARCs were first released around NYCC, and the more that I've heard about this book, the closer that it's gotten to the release, the more hyped up I've been to read it, and this book completely and entirely surpassed my expectations. I was just like fangirling reading this book and just getting so invested in the characters and everything that was going on, and I just couldn't have loved it more. It was just fantastic. So this story follows 2 main characters, Elle and Darian. Elle is, of course, a fangirl. She runs a blog for a show called Starfield, which is pretty much like a Star Trek type show to kind of give you an idea of what it is that she's interested in. This show is being rebooted into a movie, and the actor that they've casted to play the lead, Elle is not very happy with. He comes from like an OC type show, and so he doesn't really have that much credibility, and so Elle is just really upset that this casting has taken place and that they didn't pick a better actor. So she goes in her blog like and completely entirely trashes this actor, and that turns out to be Darian. And so he ends up having to go to this convention, which is actually the convention that Elle's father created, but then her father passed away, and so now she's living with her stepmom and her two stepsisters. So you're already seeing the Cinderella aspects play into the synopsis. So Darian has to attend this convention to promote the movie, and he doesn't want to go because he's had bad convention experiences. So he goes and texts the number of the creator, which is of course Elle's father, and since Elle's stepmother is very cheap and doesn't want to rebuy her a phone, Darian ends up going and texting Elle, which is of course her father's number because she inherited his number. She ends up going and then answering these texts, and so they start to text back and forth, and it's quite funny and quite ironic because they're texting the exact person that they have a vendetta against. Like, obviously Elle doesn't like Darian because of the casting, and Darian doesn't like Elle because he read her blog post and is very unhappy with somebody trashing him, especially because Darian is actually a Starfield fan and this is his dream role, so getting to play it, he wants to do it justice, although it's not really being interpreted that way by the media and by other fans. So this story is just a perfect fangirl retelling, and it has so many wonderful aspects to it, and I love all of the references, I love all the characters, I love all the Cinderella aspects that play into this story, and we basically have this cosplay contest that goes down, and that Elle is trying to go and attend her father's convention and enters this cosplay contest, and so it's all this crazy fun nerdy stuff, and I just loved it so much. I love reading these stories because you can just wholeheartedly relate to them as a reader, and it's the best thing in the entire world. I could go on and 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 about this book for hours, but I'm gonna move on. Just seriously, if you haven't read this book at all, read it. If you are a book person, you will love it and just connect to it on so many levels. I'm so glad that I got the opportunity to read it this month because it's just one of the best books I've ever read. It's probably gonna make my top 10 favorites of the year because I love it that much. Two more books, guys. My next read of the month was Ellison Eliza by Melissa de la Cruz. This was another book that came out in April that immediately, the minute that I found out that this was a thing that was happening, I went to Goodreads and put this book on my to-read shelf. Anything Alexander Hamilton, especially a YA retelling of Alexander Hamilton and Eliza's romance, I was down for. I read this book and I really enjoyed it. I think it was interesting the interpretation of Alex and Eliza that Melissa took in writing this story. There's going to be a sequel, so I'm really excited to see what she does next with these characters. I think the best thing about this book is that you know how it's going to end as a reader because of course you know that Alex and Eliza end up together in the end, but there's so many twists and turns and things that end up getting in their way, and you're still invested and you're still scared, like are they not going to end up together, and you're just so interested and invested in the story. And when a writer is able to do that, when you sort of know what the outcome is going to be, so a lot of times with retellings, if they're able to still captivate you as a reader, that's how I know that this book is really good and that it's worth reading. And so this book definitely hits that requirement for me. I'm really glad that I got the opportunity to read it and that I got to fully invest myself in the world of Alexander Hamilton, not once but twice this month. This book was wonderful. I had the best time reading it, and of course if you're a fan of Hamilton the musical, this would be a book that's definitely worth reading because it's a really fun and really cute contemporary. I love the way that Melissa takes the colonial period, that revolutionary period of the beginning and the founding of our country, and just interprets it with the writing style and with the characters. It just was wonderful. I really loved reading it, and I'm excited to see what she does with the second book in this world. Maybe we'll get to see the Mariah Reynolds affair. That's really what I'm hoping for, but of course we'll have to see. I had a really great time reading this book, and I'm very glad that I got to pick it up this month, and I'm excited to see, again, like I said, what Melissa does with the second book in this world. And I love anything Alexander Hamilton and Eliza, and I'm so glad that Melissa de la Cruz was able to write this because I know so many people have read it and really enjoyed it, and it definitely did that for me. So my final read of the month was Beauty and the Beast, Lost in a Book by Jennifer Donnelly. So this takes Beauty and the Beast and sort of retells it. What we have in this world that's a little bit different from the regular Beauty and the Beast, this story picks up at the point at which Belle discovers the Beast's bookshelf and his library, and so she's going and cleaning it and tidying it up, and she finds this book called Nevermore, and she literally falls into it and gets invested into this world where she's given all these things that she's not able to get in the Beast's castle because she's held captive. And there's this enchantress woman that is there and is tempting her, showing her all these wonderful things, and so she starts to get more and more invested in this world the more times that she visits it. You as the reader know going into this book that it's just not all that it's perked up to be, and so you see Val start to get more and more invested, and really the big question is really what's gonna happen here, and is this world all that it's perked up to be? And this story was so interesting. Again, you know how it's gonna end, but you're still on the edge of your seat. Jennifer does an amazing job at taking this world and taking Belle and all these characters from Beauty and the Beast and just perfectly retelling them. I had so much fun reading this book, especially because I just watched the Beauty and the Beast movie twice in theaters, and the minute that the DVD comes out, I'm totally gonna buy it. I've been listening to the soundtrack nonstop. I'm obsessed with Beauty and the Beast at the moment. I'm so glad I got the opportunity to read this book. My mom gave it to me for Easter, so the minute that I got the opportunity to pick this book up, I went for it. I'm so glad that I got the opportunity to read it. It was a really fun read, and I really loved getting to immerse myself more in the world of Beauty and the Beast because I'm pretty much obsessed with it now, and I don't know where it's been all my life. I don't know why I haven't been more invested because Belle is pretty much all of our inner fangirl spiritual Disney princesses. It's the best thing in the world. I'm really glad I got to read this book. It was phenomenal. So that pretty much ends my April wrap up. I spent a very long time discussing all these books, but I had so many thoughts and so many opinions, and I really loved getting to sit down and just get back into filming again. I've missed it so much. So to wrap up this video, I'm going to end with a brief announcement. So like I've said several times on my channel in the past, I'm going to be at BookCon June 3rd and June 4th this year, so both days. And so I figured as a content creator, I should promote myself and my channel a little bit. So I made business bookmarks. So I have 150 of these that I have printed that I'm going to have on me at BookCon. And if you see me at all and you want to say hi, I'm going to have these bookmarks that you can use, of course, for reading. And it has my channel name on here, and it says, read the books, meet the authors, film the videos, Gabby YA Books. And then if you turn it over, it has all of the different social media logos. It has YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Goodreads. And you can find me on all of them at Gabby YA Books. And of course, I always have them linked down below in the description for all of my videos. I'm really excited to get to have these. My mom is a graphic designer, so she helped me put all of these together. I have 150 of them, so if you see me at all at any point throughout the day, I'm definitely going to give you one of these. I'm really excited to have gotten them printed and to get to promote my channel a little bit more and to get to put myself out there as a creator. I really hope that if you guys see me at all, that I can give you one of these, and I'm really excited to have a little bit of promotional works of my own for my channel. At the minute that I got these in the mail, I was just so excited. I had the best time designing these with my mom, and I'm really excited to get to hand them out to you guys if you see me at BookCon. So with that all being said, I think that that's pretty much it for my April wrap up. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time with a new video. Goodbye!